Marv gets untased and tries to call Vesper, but she doesn't respond. Eddie explains that Vesper is interfaced with Josh and trying something. Marv's ready to tase one of these Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Last time, Vesper ended up having an unexpected family reunion, a family of androids bent on revenge. Let's see how Vesper feels about that by taking a look at the 17th session of Hyperforce, a dish best served cold. Starting off with a quick little note outside of the story, it seemed to kind of be Hyperforce cosplay night, as each of the players seemed to dress a little bit more like their actual characters. Now, Andre, Megan, and Yoshi didn't really seem to dress all that differently. However, Peter had a custom Hyperforce jacket, red, white, and black with Hyperforce symbols, custom made for the occasion. Paul was wearing a toupee-style wig and seemed to have colored his beard. And most of all, and most closely resembling her character, Christina was wearing not only a white wig, but red contact lenses. We pick up right where we left off last time, as per the usual almost, and we find out the names of the other androids. The big guy's name is Rory, and the woman's name is Jocelyn. Just as a reminder, the younger man's name was Spencer, and there's a little kid named Josh. The Rangers actually remember all about Ransik, both his evil ways in his past and his rehabilitation. In fact, taking the story forward from reinforcements from the future, they explained that Ransik went on to start a program, a government program, to help mutants called the Mutant Rehabilitation Program. The Rangers try to explain to the androids that Ransik is a changed man now and he's a good man. Rory refuses to accept this, saying that Ransik must have justice. He must be punished for what he's done. Joe kind of takes the lead here, which makes sense if you think about it. He's kind of the senior officer of this team. Yes, Jack is a beat cop. However, the two of them, Joe and Jack, were in the same Time Force class, and Joe is a covert ops Time Force officer, as well as a Time Force Power Ranger, so I would say he has the slightly higher rank. He says that Time Force can start an investigation into these events. However, Ransik is at the moment a citizen in good standing, so he cannot allow people to just take out their own revenge. Spencer says that Ransik was not punished enough. He can't just accept that Ransik has paid his debt to society for what he did. Jack says that not only do they have the ability to investigate, but as Time Force officers, they now have a duty to investigate. The androids assume that Ransik was responsible for this, but assumptions can be completely wrong. This team of Rangers has dealt with not one, but two shapeshifters, so anything could happen. The androids just turn their attention to Vesper. She's the only one that they really care about and want help from. However, Vesper is now a Time Force officer and says she cannot use her abilities, resources, and powers to pursue revenge. Also, she's a Hyperforce Power Ranger, and she acts with this family, her team. Jocelyn gets mad at her and says that they never got to have the childhood that she got to have, and she storms off. Chloe tells the other androids that she knows how lonely it is growing up without parents. However, this is an opportunity to seek new beginnings and connect with Vesper, not to focus on revenge. Rory gives Vesper one more chance to join them. Vesper says that not only will she not join them, but she will do everything within her power to stop them. Spencer says they don't need her help and storms off, dragging Josh behind him as Rory leaves as well. Vesper chases after them, with the other Rangers staying close to her and Joe teleporting ahead of all of them. Vesper turns a corner in the building and sees Spencer and Josh. Josh is having a temper tantrum, so Spencer throws him down to the ground and leaves. Meanwhile, Joe teleports in front of Jocelyn. She prepares to fight him, but he says that he can get a Time Force investigation done in just 1 week, and then they will have the answers that they need. He goes to place a comforting hand on her shoulder, also concealing a tracking device, but she slaps the hand away and attacks. Joe catches her punch and says that he wants to solve this peacefully. If they keep going down this path of revenge, it's just going to make Vesper sad. Jocelyn says that she doesn't trust Vesper anyway, kicks Joe into the wall, and runs off. Eddie goes to check on Josh, but he seems to be unable to talk now. He opens his mouth, but Eddie just sees a normal-looking human throat, though he does hear mechanical whirring noises. Meanwhile, Marv asks Jack if he knows where Ransik would be. Jack says Ransik has a big office in City Hall with a big old sign on the door, Mutant Rehabilitation Program, Director Ransik. So the androids would know exactly where to go. Marv asks Vesper if she can fix Josh, but she's not sure at first. But then she remembers that she has the one-time healing charge card that Lena gave her. She uses it to repair Josh's voice. Josh explains that while he looks like he's 6 years old, he's actually the same age as Vesper, approximately 17, 18 years old. So he understands more than it seems like. It just seems that his development is delayed for some reason, which is why he's not growing and still acting more or less like a child. He starts crying as his thoughts turn back to Ransik and wanting revenge, and when Vesper hugs him, he starts crying even harder. They decide to bring Josh along with them, hoping that they can show him that Ransik is now a changed man, and then he'll be able to explain that to the others and convince them. Chloe has a day-old, aged burrito with her, so she offers to give that to Josh. But first, Marv says that he can heat that thing right up. And he burns it all the way to a crisp. Good job there. Thankfully, Joe has some of the bachang that he and Marv's mother gave him, and he gives that to Josh, who eats it. Vesper tells Josh that the Power Rangers never go looking for a fight, even if they have to fight a lot. She asks him if he will come along with them and just talk to Ransik. Josh kind of loses the message and just ends up with, "Would you like to come along with the Power Rangers?" and gets really excited about that. Joe, however, begs out, saying there's something personal that he has to go take care of. The other Rangers question him on this, why he wouldn't come along. Is he leaving again? You know, what's going on? What's with the secrets? This time, however, Joe just excuses Josh from the group for a second and comes clean. Joe reveals that he is engaged to Nadira, Ransik's daughter. I guess the whole thing with Lucas didn't end up working out, huh, Nadira? When Joe vanished, he didn't just vanish from his family, he vanished from them, Ransik and Nadira, too. And he has not yet had the opportunity to tell Nadira that he is back. The Rangers totally understand and say he should go take care of that. The rest of them grab a public flying car, maybe a Sky Uber or something, and head for City Hall. Vesper panics for a moment because she thinks she forgot Yappy. However, Chloe grabbed the puppy dog and renamed him Burrito, something that Vesper totally approves of. They reach City Hall and find Ransik's office, but he's not there and the door is locked. A short older man with a comb-over walks by, and Jack recognizes him as his old police supervisor, Patel. The chief explains to the Rangers that there's an event being held at the animal shelter today, where the mutants in the rehabilitation program and Ransik are helping out. As they go to leave, however, Patel has a request for Jack. He says, Jack's a big-time Power Ranger now. Sure, he's got a super posh, luxurious office on their time ship or whatever. He's off saving all of time in the universe. Down here, they have a new recruit, and they kind of need Jack to clean out his office. The Rangers tell Patel that, they're a little busy at the moment, but he says just as long as it's done by the end of the day, that would be fantastic. Jack is actually a little bit upset about this since he made some improvements to that office to make it feel more like home. They head over to the animal shelter, which is on the corner of 8th and Biscayne. Calle Ocho and Biscayne Boulevard? Apparently we're in the Little Miami section of Silver Hills. On the way, they talk again about what an amazing turnaround Ransik has accomplished with his life, and realize they should probably be keeping pretty close tabs on him. Ransik would be a pretty key target for the Alliance. As they arrive, they see Ransik and some other mutants bringing in supplies from a big truck. They make sure to keep eyes on Josh. I mean, Vesper's kind of an escape artist. Makes sense that he could pull the same tricks that she does. Josh sees Ransik and starts getting very, very angry, digging his fingers right into Vesper's palm. Eddie grabs Burrito, the dog, not an actual burrito, and starts trying to distract Josh while Jack steps into his line of sight. Marv takes over, playing with Burrito and Josh, so Jack can go talk to Ransik. Jack asks Ransik if he remembers a Dr. Ferrix. Ransik goes dark and says that yes, he does. Jack explains the situation about the androids found at the lab and how they're now seeking revenge against Ransik. He asks Ransik if he can provide any additional information, fill in some of the gaps. All Ransik really adds to what they already know is how Frax, the robot that Dr. Ferrix turned himself into, infiltrated Ransik's army and then tried to kill him before Ransik erased that consciousness, basically. He also says how Frax's final act was sacrificing himself to save Ransik, which is a really weird way to characterize that, seeing as that Frax was just an empty robot, basically. And Ransik even disrespected him when he did that. Ransik asks where the androids are now, and Jack says they don't know, they just stormed off in anger. Vesper then walks up, and she's more than a little upset at meeting the person who left her to die in a pile of rubble and fire 17 years ago. Ransik says that he didn't know the androids were there, but he did blow up the lab with the intention of killing Dr. Ferrix and destroying all of his work, so yes, that is true. He asks what he can do to make this right. Jack says that his own rehabilitation is not complete. There's a trail behind him. These androids that are now coming to get their revenge on him. He needs to speak with these androids and try to help them, which he agrees to. Back over with Joe, we see him walk up to the house where Nadira lives and ring the doorbell. A video message plays, kind of like an answering machine for the doorbell, which is kind of a neat idea if you think about it, explaining that she's going to be at the animal shelter today, helping her daddy and the other mutants. Joe teleports over there and sees Jack and Vesper talking to Ransik. Joe is, understandably, just as concerned about what Ransik's going to think about all this, so he ducks back. Eddie sees him and runs over, explaining the current situation. Joe says that he needs to find a way into the shelter to talk to Nadira before Ransik knows he's alive. Eddie agrees to help, being kind of his wingman, and they head to the back of the animal shelter, running directly into Nadira, who is training some dogs and for the moment doesn't notice them. Marv is still trying to keep Josh distracted, but it's not really working, and he demands to know where Ransik is. Then he drops his own little fun bombshell. He is connected to his brothers and sister, and has let them know that Ransik is here, and they are on their way. That's not good. Marv manages to talk Josh back down again for the moment, agreeing to just talk to Ransik, and then he'll show him some of the snakes in the shelter. Marv calls Chloe and updates her on the situation, and she steps back outside the building and lets the others know that the androids are on their way. Ransik explains how he's no longer a mutant, remember that he was cured of that during reinforcements from the future, and so he can no longer form weapons to defend himself. However, he would be a coward to avoid them, so he will face them. Joe is still looking at Nadira, trying to figure out how to approach the situation, when he spots something coming over her shoulder, and his instincts tell him it's not good. He has Eddie call the other Rangers, while he still tries to figure out how to approach and talk to and warn Nadira. Back over with Ransik, Chloe suggests putting Josh into one of the animal cages, saying she's not really good at the whole babysitting thing. Vesper thinks babysitting is a great idea, and tries to sit on Josh. Marv stops her and walks back over to Josh and says that they have found Ransik, but he's not taking him over to meet him unless he calms down. Josh does his best to do so and angrily stomps over with Marv. Marv introduces Josh to Ransik, and Josh very promptly jumps on Ransik's shoulders and starts beating his face in. Ransik does manage to get Josh off, but his face is a bit messed up for it. And thus the battle with the 6-year-old android begins. Eddie manages to grapple Josh and hold him in place for a turn, and Marv spends his turn tending to Ransik's injuries. And that's when the other androids show up, so yeah, this was just a fun situation all the way around. Jocelyn runs at Marv and tries to pull him away from Ransik, but Marv stays in place. Vesper walks up to Jocelyn and says if the two of them are related, then Vesper must have gotten all the looks in the family. She then finds Jocelyn's connection port and jabs her fingers into it, interfacing with Jocelyn. Jocelyn's mind is basically just like Vesper's, the big black landscape with the bookshelves and the memory blocks. However, here there is also a gigantic flame of vengeance, growing hotter and hotter. As Rory and Spencer head towards Vesper, seeing this happen, Chloe walks back out of the animal shelter. She's been in and out of it. She's been looking at the cats mostly. Declares the situation entirely too weird to handle, and morphs. Marv suggests to Jack that since Jocelyn is disabled for the moment, this might be a good time to restrain her. Jack agrees and pulls out his Time Force badge, treating it kind of like a brand new thing, despite him being the only one of the 5 that had it prior to the previous session. He activates it and she is cryogenically frozen and stored. Inside her mind, Vesper sees the bookshelf stop moving and feels a wave of cold move through her before she's yanked out and back into her own body. Back behind the shelter, Joe hears all of this going on, as does Nadira. She starts looking around to see where the noise is coming from, and her eyes land on Joe. Joe manages to stammer out an explanation and an apology, but says that right now something's going on with her father, and she runs to the front of the animal shelter. She comments on how cool that new pink ranger looks. Joe asks if they can talk about their relationship later, and she says right now to help her daddy. Eddie keeps hanging on to Josh and tries to talk some sense into him. Vesper says it's time to arrest a baby. Eddie says that seems to be a little intense and he just holds him there for now. Josh says that he needs to talk to Vesper, and Vesper talks to him about letting go of the anger and just living a normal life. Josh reaches out his hand and Vesper takes it, an electrical charge traveling between the two that we had seen earlier and I just kind of forgot to mention. Josh asks her to help him to let go of this anger and hate and blame. She says that she can help him and enters his mind. Inside Josh's mind, there are far fewer memories, which I guess makes sense when you consider that he has, even after 17 years, a younger mind that wouldn't categorize or keep as many of the memories, and most of them are just cold, hungry nights anyway. Then she sees that flame of vengeance grow larger and larger as she hears Ransik laughing. Vesper feels a tap on her shoulder. She turns around and sees the rest of the Hyperforce Rangers and Joe. Eddie kind of speaks to her like a ghost, saying that when she's angry, they're the ones that help her. He then holds out the Ranger Bud's wrench, and they do their little song. Thinking about Chloe, Vesper wonders what she's up to right now. What she's up to is surveying the situation, seeing that Jocelyn has vanished, and Spencer and Rory are running towards her. So she pulls out her handcuffs and cuffs Spencer. However, since Spencer's at full health, he just kicks her away, and now just his hands are handcuffed. With those heavy Time Force cuffs on his hands, Spencer just tries to club Ransik and Marv. Marv dodges and tries to zap Spencer with his blaster in taser mode. However, Spencer is able to use the cuffs to deflect the blast right back to Marv, who gets tased. Jack defends Ransik and knocks down Spencer. He tells Ransik that they should run, but Ransik tries talking to Spencer first. Spencer's not really interested in listening and attacks, so Ransik agrees that they should run, and they head for the back of the animal shelter. And running back there took about 5 minutes or so, if you catch my drift. Rory chases after them and tries to bump Jack out of place. However, Jack's got a couple of pounds on Rory, so he's unable to do so, and Jack successfully gets Ransik away. Joe teleports in front of Rory and hip throws him, using his momentum to throw Rory further back. Marv gets untased and tries to call Vesper, but she doesn't respond, Eddie explaining how she's interfaced with Josh and trying something. He's ready to tase one of these things for real this time and tells Joe to get ready to move out of the way. He lines up his shot on Rory and fires, with Joe rolling out of the way just in time. Marv then slaps his cuffs on Rory to hold him in place. Back inside Josh's mind, the fires of vengeance are growing larger and larger and even starting to consume some of the memories. Vesper thinks about her Ranger family and how they've helped her to get to better times and tries to convey those feelings and memories to Josh. Josh says that those emotions are indeed beautiful, but this desire for vengeance is programmed in and he just can't overcome his programming. He asks what Vesper is holding and she explains about the Ranger Bud's wrench. He appears in person and the wrench starts glowing in all of the Ranger colors, including silver. He asks if he can hold it with her and she allows this, and a wave of rainbow energy expands out from them, going through all of the memories, and the fire dies. Josh looks up at Eddie and asks him to let him go, and Vesper says it's okay now, he's been cured. Eddie very slowly lets go of him. Josh runs over to Spencer and interfaces with him, conveying the same cure. Marv keeps restraining Rory. Chloe leaps into the air, shines and glistens, and lands on Rory right next to the Shee brothers. Rory starts wiggling and writhing, trying to get up. The brothers Shee are thrown off, but Chloe gets Rory into a figure 4 lock and holds him in place. Eddie starts looking around and realizes that everybody is secured for the moment, so he takes Vesper up on his shoulders to take advantage of his higher speed and gets over to Rory to try to help him. Jack calls Alpha 55, oh, hi Alpha, and asks if he can teleport the two of them away, he and Ransik. Alpha says that this would involve teleporting Ransik to their ship, and for some reason he doesn't think this is a good idea? Ransik's good now, there shouldn't be a problem. So instead, Jack decides to shove Ransik into one of the larger dog cages and close the door, explaining that it's for his protection. Ransik does accept this and tells him to just protect Nadira. The Rangers all look around for Nadira and see her at the front of the animal shelter holding Burrito, and she's okay for the moment. Vesper climbs onto Rory and says that she is going to fix all of this. Then, after making sure that the two of them are not technically biologically related, she moves to kiss him. However, as soon as she touches him, she ends up interfacing with him and entering his mind. The fires of vengeance in his mind are absolutely raging. She starts remembering good times with her team, hanging out with Chloe, meeting Joe, traveling to Camelot, how Marv missed meeting Santa Claus, and she and Eddie in that tiny room in the North Pole. Rory appears physically and hugs Vesper, saying these memories are a perfect image of who she is. Vesper says that things can be the same for him. He can change and be better. He sees her Ranger Bud's wrench, touches it, and the same rainbow lights and the fire dies out. Chloe rolls off of him. Vesper apologizes to Eddie for having to see that and explains that she had to find a way, even now in the middle of a battle, to communicate to him that there's just too much that she has to find out about herself to be ready for a relationship right now. They need to just be friends. Of course, this isn't actually any sort of a change to their relationship. This is already where they were standing. However, Eddie just once again accepts this and sadly walks away. Vesper then runs in front of Eddie and kisses him. She doesn't explain how she kissed him, by the way, and says that was for being a good friend, and she's just saying not right now. Maybe later down the road. Eddie keeps a stiff upper lip and checks on the androids. They're okay and ask about Vesper. They all realize that Jocelyn was actually captured, so she hasn't been cured yet. Eddie heads to the back of the shelter and the androids follow. Jack releases Jocelyn, who's extremely disoriented, before seeing Ransik. Ransik starts to hide, but then steps forward and apologizes for what he did to her. She does not accept this apology and tries to attack Ransik, with Eddie jumping in to defend him. The other androids all circle Jocelyn as Marv and Chloe start to head back inside the shelter, but see Vesper standing nearby outside looking very sad and mopey. She says that she feels like she broke up with Eddie, even though they weren't actually official, and even though she feels like it was the right decision, she's not happy about it. Chloe says that matters of the heart sometimes just feel that way, but, kissing him afterwards probably didn't help. And inside, we see that Eddie is just barely holding himself together. The android family, having apparently cured Jocelyn off screen, walk back out of the shelter and tell Vesper how lucky she is to have a family. Vesper tells them that she doesn't feel like she deserves to be called their sister, since they didn't grow up together as a family, but now they have their own family with each other. They leave, sadly. Nadira walks out with Burrito and hands him back to Vesper. Marv apologizes to Ransik and Nadira for all the trouble and says that now they need to go and take care of some other things. Ransik understands and thanks them for their help. Marv says it's time for the Rangers to continue with their mission, but Jack reminds them that first, he's going to need a couple of cardboard boxes. Chloe agrees to help him clean out his office, and the two of them head there. The rest of them start to head for Time Force headquarters, except for Vesper, who says she'd like some time alone to reflect on things and to go shopping at Hot Topic, because that's the kind of mood she's in. She specifically says goodbye to Eddie, who says goodbye to her as well. Marv asks Eddie if he's okay, and he says that he is, but Marv says, no matter what, I'm here for you, brother. Joe also says that he has some personal pink-haired business that he needs to attend to, and that he'll meet up with the rest of them later. Chloe and Jack take the flying Uber bus, whatever it is, back to City Hall and start cleaning out his office. As Jack starts going through his collectibles, he's bitter about the situation. All his time as a police officer, now a Power Ranger, and this is the thanks he gets? Clean out your office? This office represents who he was before he became the Yellow Ranger. Chloe tells him that times change. Now he has a new life as a Power Ranger, and hey, someday he might be able to return to this office. Jack says he's actually got his eyes on a bigger one down the hall, and he's encouraged by their talk. Patel knocks at the door and comes in with two of Jack's old police buddies, and they have a little chat about his time as a beat cop and what he does now as a Power Ranger. They start talking about the invasion of the Alliance, and Patel mentions how they had this employee that would rant on and on about the Alliance, their 5-stage plan, da 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 da. Jack realizes as Patel starts describing the plan this janitor mentioned that the first 3 stages of the plan have already actually come true. This janitor knows something. Jack wants to speak with this janitor, but Patel says they were already going to interrogate him. The situation is under control. This is not something that the Power Rangers need concern themselves with. This gets the two of them very suspicious, and they actually pull off good cop, bad cop this time. Chloe starts going nuts, saying that they had this suspect, this person of interest with this important information, and they just dismissed him for this long? Jen Scotts is going to hear about this. Jack, the good cop, says, listen, I don't know what this girl is capable of, which is probably true if you think about it. She could fly off the handle at any time. It would probably be a good idea for you to just let us go and talk to this guy. Patel reluctantly agrees and leads them down to where he's being held. This janitor, a Stephen Lang, is sitting in the cell with long, greasy hair and pale skin, just looking like a half-crazed madman. Jack and Chloe go inside the cell, and Stephen immediately starts ranting about how he was going to be a part of something great. The Alliance's 5-stage plan to take things over, and those steps are already falling into place. Stage 1, the rebirth of the greatest evil leader in history. Stage 2, the collection of the greatest villains that ever disappeared from history. Stage 3, the absorption of power from the mutants. Stage 4 is next up, the gathering of the Armada. And if that's a term that sounds familiar to you Power Rangers fans, it should, as he says the Alliance is traveling to the year 2014 to gather this armada of ships. Jack tells Chloe to give this man a candy bar, which she does reluctantly, and tells him that another candy bar is coming next week if he continues to cooperate. Stephen says he doesn't care about candy. He's part of something that's going to change history. The Alliance is already gathering their armada of alien ships, and those ships are going to be what turns the tide. This was clearly the payoff to last time's setup, and taken together, 16 and 17 feel like a very interesting kind of one-off story. It's very interesting in a story that's focused so much on time travel and visiting different Power Rangers seasons that we spent this one block of episodes pretty late in the game in the present day. In contrast to last time, which as I said was a whole bunch of talking and setup and plot, this time felt like we spent most of the session in battle. And it was a good, interesting fight, which ended with the bad guys not being defeated, but reformed. And by the way, did any of you notice that Chloe was the only one who actually morphed? And even then, it was just because she was kind of overwhelmed by the whole situation. You would have expected this to be another session that focused on Vesper and her dealing with her android family. However, in this session, we also got a lot of focus on Jack, his feelings about leaving the past behind and moving into the future. Eddie also got a pretty good moment in dealing with Vesper, the queen of mixed signals. And Marv acted well as a leader, and Chloe actually spent the entire session acting kind of confused and like she was off of her game. And I always love how Malika arranges the plot so that the session will tease into the next one at the very end. And yes, the Hyperforce Rangers' next destination is clear. They'll be heading for the year 2014 and Harwood County, California. Yes, Hyperforce is going to be going into another anniversary season, Super Megaforce. Many of the Ranger fans in the chat were understandably upset about this, hating Super Megaforce to the point of not wanting Hyperforce to add any sort of canonicity to it, any kind of respect to it. Maybe, if we just all forget about Super Megaforce, somehow it'll just go away. But I'm excited. Why? Because Malika has shown she can take anything that Power Rangers has done and make it even better. I'm confident that she can take even Super Megaforce and with it craft an engaging, exciting, thoughtful story. And if she does manage to pull that off, can we just go ahead and start the petition to get her hired as a writer on the show? Overall, an enjoyable, action-filled session. The lack of actual outright Ranger stuff does take a little away from it, but just a little tiny little. A dish best served cold gets a 4.5 out of 5. That is going to do it for another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Thank you, heroes, so much, as always, for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking that like button right down below. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this session and my review of it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to see all of my videos, and ring that bell, get your notifications set up, so you get notified of whenever I post brand new videos, just like this Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. And if you really enjoyed my work on this video and wanted to toss me just a little bit of tip change, you can head to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangervid. I appreciate whatever little bit of financial support lands in that jar. Not necessary, just an extra step of appreciation that I'm incredibly grateful for. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you, and go Hyperforce. Starting off with one little note outside of the game's story, it seemed to be cosplay night for the... Yes? Or is that a dog or a cat? That's 4 feet. Wow. Weird blooper. As each of the players were basically dressed like their actual characters. Good ad-libbing, Sean. Starting off with a quick little note outside of the story, it seemed to be kind of picking up right... He can't just accept that Ransik has paid his debt to society. Jocelyn gets angry with her and says that they farts. However, Vesper is now a Time Force officer, and there are certain... Jack says that Ransik has a big office right in City Hall with a huge sign on the door, Mutant Farts! Marv asks Vesper if she can fix Josh, but Vesper tells... even if they have to fight a lot. And then she asks Josh if I guess the whole thing with Lucas didn't end up working out, huh, Nadira? However, Chloe grabbed the dog and has renamed the dog Burrito, which something Vesper... A short, older man with a... Yeah, farts! Patel tells the Rangers that there's an event with the animal where the mutants in the rehabilitation program and Ransik are helping out. that was a good take, and that's where I was. But at the end of it, I was looking over so much that I'm doing that again. As they arrive, they see Ransik and a couple of mutants bringing in supplies from a big truck. Josh does... I could have even ad-libbed that into Josh does get thrown off by Ransik, but oh well. This time it's grapefruit. Grapefruit actually is quite good. Inside Josh's mind, there are far fewer. Marv dodges and tries to zap Spencer's. With those heavy Time Force cuffs on his hand, Spencer just tries hand. However, Marv... Okay, alright, it's fine, it's good. With those heavy Time Force cuffs on his hand, Jack defends Ransik and knocks down Spencer. Yeah, that was... Okay, so I was successful. The rest of them are going to touch their glasses. Chloe tells him that times change, yeah. Stage 1, the rebirth of the greatest evil leader in history. Stage 2, dance with the DDR revolution machines. DDR revolution. Step 1, the rebirth of the greatest evil leader in history. Step 2, farce, the collection of the greatest villains that disappeared. Stage 3, the other one that's on the TV over there. The absorption of power from the mutants. God, this take is being difficult. Overall, an enjoyable, action-filled session. But the lack of action... Yeah. Then you wanted me to have a little bit of farts.